Saudi Arabian low-cost carrier flyadeal is on its way to strengthen its international reach, and it is doing so one region at a time. The airline's operations currently consist of 80% domestic, 20% international, and flyadeal plans to turn this into an even 50% split in the next 2 to 3 years. On May 28, 2025, flyadeal announced that it entered a strategic partnership with Philippine low-cost carrier Cebu Pacific. AeroTime caught up with flyadeal CEO Steven Greenway in Manila during the partnership announcement for an exclusive executive spotlight interview, where he spoke about flyadeal's partnership with Cebu Pacific, Saudi Arabia's growth, US President Trump's visit to the Middle East, the airline's expansion plans, and more. Good afternoon, Steven. Welcome to Manila, and it's a pleasure to have you at AeroTime. Steven, let's talk about why you're here. Congratulations on your partnership with Cebu Pacific. It's the first partnership that's been approved by the Kingdom. Please take us back to a few months ago and how that partnership has come about to today.
Well, thanks for having me, and it's great to be back in Manila. So the genesis of the relationship, the first thing really was about capacity sharing. That is that we worked out pretty quickly that the low season in the Philippines is actually the high season in the Kingdom, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and our low season is Cebu Pacific's high season. So that's really the genesis of the relationship. The actual original genesis was the fact that we actually made a business trip down here in February to meet with the Cebu Pac team because we were just about to complete an order and announce Airbus 330neo order, so a wide body order, our very first. And sure enough, Cebu has 11 of the aircraft. And when we asked Airbus, who do you think we should speak to as an operator, they said Cebu Pac. And I knew Mike for probably about 10, 15 years. So it was a very quick call, came down. And of course, like all good relationships, over dinner, started to talk about how we could take over the world, joking. And we actually worked out that, one, our businesses had a lot of stuff in common. Number one, obviously, we're both LCCs. Number two, the knowledge sharing on the 330 was invaluable. But number three, there was opportunities actually to partner on a couple of things. And the wet lease, in terms of their aircraft coming to the Kingdom, was one such example.
Wonderful. So speaking of the A330s, you've confirmed your order for 10 A330s, your first wide-body aircraft. Can you tell us where you plan to fly these wide bodies?
Sure. They're our first owned aircraft, but we've been doing wide-body wet lease for a couple of years now. This is our third year that we've done it. We actually have 6 wide-bodies, all 330s and 1 777 in our fleet at the moment that does Hajj and Umrah specifically for the airline. So we're familiar with wide-body operations. They're just not our aircraft or crew. Moving forward, Southeast Asia is our target, and predominantly because of labour traffic and so forth that comes into the Kingdom, but also religious traffic as well coming in Umrah and Hajj. So Southeast Asia, we won't start flying down here for at least another 2 and a bit years. We got enough fleets and so forth, but always been on record saying, yes, this is where we're coming. So think Indonesia, think the Philippines, and think Malaysia. Subcontinent in terms of India, and then Europe with the 10 aircraft. That pretty well takes the whole 10 aircraft that we're getting. And we have 10 options as well that we'll look to exercise over the next couple of years as well.
Okay. And speaking of the workers, in the Middle East alone, there's about over 2 million overseas Filipino workers, and in Saudi Arabia, just under 1 million. Let's fast forward to 2027 or end of that. How do you envision flyadeal to be transporting the movement of these workers?
Yeah, I mean, it's a massive movement. It's large volumes, but low yields. That's the critical piece. And so from that perspective, we see this continuing to grow as the Kingdom keeps on investing, building, and so forth. The population is growing rapidly. There will be more demand for Filipino workers in the Kingdom, and we want to be able to support that.
Right. Now, Steven, you previously mentioned that the Middle East right now is almost like Asia 10 years ago.
Right? You've researched well.
So can you tell us about this observation and why this market that's commonly consuming like premium product is now warming up to LCCs?
Absolutely. So my observation comes from when I was at Scoot Singapore Airlines in Singapore. And I remember the days, particularly 2005 to 2015 or thereabouts, or a bit later, you really had China as the growth engine in this region. We have Saudi Arabia now, the growth engine in the Middle East. The country is now accessible. You can get into the country. You don't need any special visas, visa on arrival, etc. And it really has opened up to the world. It's 5-10 years ago, that just simply wasn't the case.
Right.
So you have that being a primary driver. You have the local market, domestic market, growing at 15% per annum at this moment, which is absolutely huge. And you also, it's becoming a destination in itself. And so is the Middle East. You've got to remember that, not long ago, people actually just transferred through Dubai. They didn't get off.
Yeah.
Now they're getting off and staying a week or 2 or 3, okay, visiting friends, going on holidays and everything. So the region itself is just changing dramatically. It is seen as a destination point in itself, not a transfer point. And you're having Saudi Arabia, as an example, now opening up to the world and being able to bring in tourism and so forth that could have never been, never even considered 5 years ago, if that makes sense.
Right. So exciting times.
Very much so.
Yeah. Now, Stephen, U.S. President Donald Trump recently concluded a 4-day visit to the Middle East, where he walked away with record-breaking deals such as the Boeing order of $96 billion from Qatar Airways. Now, has this visit inspired flyadeal to perhaps put a variety to all Airbus fleet, or how has this visit impacted your plans?
It hasn't so much impacted us per se, but one thing which I'll come to in a second. Number one, we've been an Airbus customer since day one. We're very familiar with the aircraft, and we think the Airbus aircraft that we've purchased are best fit for our airline.
Yeah.
Like any good LCC, you don't want to be mixing fleets. And we already have somewhat of a mixed fleet in terms of an A320 as a baseline, the 321s, 39 of them will start arriving next year, and now we have the 330s. That's enough variety for us. I think if you go into different manufacturers and so forth, it brings in complexities that you don't really want to get into. As an example, our 320 pilots only need 10 days training to get onto a 330. If we had a Boeing aircraft, it would probably take 4 months, as an example. What interestingly happened for us from President Trump's visit was something that no one expected, was the normalization of relationship with Syria. So sanctions were lifted and so forth. And what I keep on telling everyone is saying, well, what's your network plan and everything? Very much domestic focused. We've going the long haul coming as well, which we spoke about. But our backyard is flourishing. You and I, if we had this discussion 6 months ago, I would have never imagined that we were going to fly to Iraq. I would have never imagined I would be flying to Lebanon, nor Syria. And that's what we're doing. We're going to be flying to Syria in the next couple of months, which is incredibly exciting. So the market's opened up after a terrible 10 plus years of civil war. The market has now opened up. Relationship has normalized with the United States. We now have access to this market. So that's an incredibly exciting piece that we didn't see coming. And that was actually because of his trip and meeting the leader of Syria only a couple of weeks ago. So again, very dynamic region. And it's now flourishing in terms of opening up. It's very exciting.
Very good. It's good to know that there's something that's more than these record-breaking deals that's come out of it.
For sure.
Yeah. Now, Stephen, at one of AeroTime's sister companies, Aviation CV, a lot of their followers are looking to further their career in aviation, and we'd love to talk about your personal career journey.
Yes.
Now, traditionally, a lot of CEOs have majored in finance and management, and you hold a double degree in economics and political science.
Geez, you know me too well. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. As someone who's majored in something similar, this is actually inspiring to see someone who holds that degree now in your level. What made you choose that combination of degrees, and how has it led you to your journey?
Right. So economics, I was always numerate. So economics to me, the theory of economics, I always enjoyed. So going to university and studying that was a no-brainer for me. I was never going to be a doctor or anything, and I always thought finance was a bit too boring. So economics was the one for me. Political science came about simply because I was actually planning to go and work for the Australian Civil Service. I was going to work for, my view was Department of Treasury or something where I could leverage my economics degree. And I very much enjoyed politics and so forth. So that's why I studied it. And it only took me another 1.5 years on top to get a double degree. So that's how I ended up with it. I think, interestingly, I used my economics degree first up in my first 10 years. It was more practical in terms of the work that I was doing. But the political science comes into its own fore in terms of relations. Once you get to a more senior level, you're having to deal with countries, governments, government officials, embassies, all of this type of stuff. And I've found that my second degree has sort of come to the fore in terms of what I was learning 20 plus years back. That's actually practical to what I'm doing today.
Oh, exciting. That's good to know. Now, at the core of every company are its people.
Yes.
Now, I would love to know, from your decades of experience, from your early days in Qantas to WestJet to Scoot to now to flyadeal, and even your experience outside of the airline industry, what are the top 3 qualities that you value and look for in people, whether they are front-facing or top-level management?
No, that's a good question. I think they have to be a cultural fit. And you can have words on a wall about a culture and all this type of stuff, but I think a culture is very organic in an airline, becomes quite cliquey, some airlines as well. But I think there's no tick box. You walk into the room and go, it comes about through body language. It comes about through personal interaction. Can we work with this person? Because an LCC, by definition, particularly in its management ranks, is quite small.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you think that a person isn't the right cultural fit, it's probably not going to work, because the team, it doesn't mean the team has to be all the same,
right,
but you're looking for someone who you can plug and play into the organization. So that cultural fit is absolutely necessary. The second thing, which is related to the cultural fit, is, do you roll up your sleeves and get into it? So again, as an LCC, particularly with flyadeal, and I don't think Cebu Pacific is any different, is you don't have one job. You're working on multiple jobs at any one time. So you'll be doing this during the day, and at the night you'll be doing this. Here I am being interviewed by you. Tomorrow I'm doing an aircraft leasing deal. The next day I'm doing
yeah.
You've got to be a multitasker. You've got to be willing to say, look, I'm going to do some of these things, bring them on board. I may not be an expert,
Mm-hmm.
but I'll find my way through that. So that sort of rolling up your sleeves, I think, more than anything else. I think the third area, to be brutally honest, and particularly again with LCCs, is just having that stamina.
Right.
That you're going to get knocked around a little bit during your career. The LCC world is not an easy world. It's very tough, and you've got to be resilient. You've got to get back into the game, always be focused, and climb that hill. So I think all those three together, and it's not do you have a PhD in this or whatever. You can sort of see it's very cultural. What do you bring to the table? Can you integrate effectively? Have you got a lot of resilience? Because you will have some times where you're going to get knocked back. You need to get back into the game and keep on going.
Yeah, so you need to be flexible but tough.
Totally.
Yeah. Now, speaking of people,
Mm-hmm.
how have employment roadshows like the one that Aviation CV did earlier this year, how has that helped you in attracting the right talent?
Absolutely. So I think a couple of things. Number one is, Saudi Arabia is relatively new to people. It wasn't on, I'll be brutally honest with you, it wasn't probably on the top of everyone's list a couple of years ago,
Mm-hmm.
for all sorts of reasons. Now the kingdom's open up, people want to get to know what Saudi Arabia, because they're going to make a decision not just about the employer, but the country they work in, obviously. So they want to know what they're getting themselves into. They want to know what it's going to be like on the ground. That roadshow that you're referring to was for captains specifically,
Mm-hmm.
incredibly successful. And so we're going to be doing that again soon. But I think it was able, for us, it was able to communicate not just about the company, but the change in the kingdom, what it's like to live there. And hopefully most people walked away and said, you know what, that's probably now at the top of my list.
Yeah. Okay. Now, last one, Steven.
Sure.
Your job and your life has brought you all over the world, and I
Mhm.
think you've lived in about 15
14,
cities?
15, I think. I need to go and have another count, I think. But yeah, 14, 15 countries.
Okay.
Yeah.
And among all those, which one's the most memorable, and which city do you call home?
I don't say this just because it's my job and where I live at the moment. I honestly believe it's Saudi Arabia. Now, second to that would be Singapore. I loved my time in Singapore with Scoot. I did 6 years there, 8 years. I absolutely adore the country and the city and so forth and what have you. But I came into Saudi Arabia with a very open mind. I'd worked in Saudi Arabia, not lived, but done some work in Saudi Arabia in 16, 17. And I didn't get the best of impressions. Not about the people, but just more, it was very difficult to get into, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The transformation of the kingdom is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very enjoyable country to live in. The people are so warm, absolutely so warm. They'll do anything for you. And I think it's just that experience. You don't see a country transform itself as quickly as Saudi Arabia is currently transforming. So you're sort of in the middle of the action, so to speak. So you can be part of that, you can be contributing to that, but you're seeing genuine change. So for me, incredibly exciting. If the kingdom hadn't come along and you'd asked me this question, I would have said Singapore, but it certainly has overtaken that, and just in terms of the overall experience and the excitement that the Vision 2030 is bringing to the country.